Hello, EDU 6550. Welcome to class. And before I get started in this very brief presentation, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Amy Bergstrom, the faculty member going to be teaching this course. I have a little brief intro, but thought it would be nice to share my frames with you as well, since that's what we're doing in this lesson. But anyway, I grew up in a small town just south of Duluth. I have one son, a 12-year-old, who's in the Duluth public schools. I now live in Duluth, Minnesota. I am an associate professor here in the School of Education. I am Ojibwe heritage, so I'm very proud of my Anishinaabe culture and roots. My mother is from the Red Lake Reservation in northern Minnesota, and my father is Swedish, German, and Norwegian, so I have a bit of a mix. So those are traditions and cultural values that I have. And let's see, I think that's probably about it for now. But anyway, welcome to class, and I do look forward to teaching and learning with each of you throughout the course of the semester. This visual I put on here just to give you a little bit of a snapshot of the language and the terminology that's often used when we talk about culturally responsive practice. So that being said, much of it is rooted in very similar characteristics and traits. So don't get yourself tripped up on language so much. I mean, as you can see here around the circle, there's lots of different terminologies that's being used. Equity pedagogy, which James Banks uses, critical pedagogy, which really Paulo Freire is sort of the groundbreaking work in this work. James Banks in multicultural education, Gloria Ladson Billings, I believe the article that you're reading in this lesson, Geneva Gay, of course, the text that we're using for the course, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a snapshot that there's lots of different terminologies when we talk about culturally responsive practice, but I don't want you to get so tripped up over them, because in essence, we're talking about much of the same thing. Some of them have a little bit different approaches to basically the same end result. So I'm going to go over here to our learning activities and get into just lesson one and do a quick overview in terms of thinking about. So here we have, the intro video. So this article, although it is, there might be some time elapsed between the publication, it's important to read sort of the foundation work in a content area. So this article is really good in laying out culturally responsive teaching practices. So keep it, like I say, print it out, highlight it. There's some really good things in there that we're going to continue to go back to throughout the course of the semester. And of course, thinking about our frames, and the reason why, and I really appreciate it, I think it was Annie that shared the sort of icebreaker, the what's above and what's below activity, and thank you for sharing that. I have done that a few times, but it's important to understand in this class there's visible diversity and then there's invisible diversity, okay? And so when we think about that in the context of teaching and learning, it's important for us to think about how visible and invisibility affects practice and affects learning. So in this case, we're always going to be thinking about our constituents, which is our students, okay, and what do we bring to the teaching and learning environment? And that's partly why we stop for a minute and really think about our own frames, because if you look at this handout, so not only is it asking you to identify your own identity, or what I like to say, cultural constructs, but the sort of acronym is really asking yourself some very important questions when you're working with other people that may be different than yourself. So it's really good to sort of go back to this and think about this. And this would be a great activity actually for students to do as well if you're working in a classroom with kids. So this check-in, educator check-in on culture, is a really good activity for you to stop and, oh, I didn't want to do that one, but oh well. Sorry, let's get this open up here real quick. But this is really a good self-reflection piece that really asks you some questions about what you do in the context of your classroom. And I love that it asks some very simple, basic questions about knowing the names of your students. If you have perhaps, you know, backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, do you know that of your students? How do you gauge the culture of your classroom environment? So it's a really good, and please be honest. So don't, and this is really one thing I struggle with when we do self-assessments, and there's a fair number of research to support this, is that when we do self-assessments, we often score ourselves higher than what we actually are. And so be as honest as you can about this. And again, this is just a reminder, this is a private document. It's not something you're going to share publicly. I am going to ask you in lesson 2 to write a journal reflection on your results. But again, your journals are private. So, and again, this is due at the very tail end of our lesson. So just wanted to do kind of a quick overview. I don't mean to scroll so fast. I don't want to make people car sick, but just kind of a quick overview of sort of lesson 1 and kind of the purpose behind this imagery here in our on our announcement page. So just a couple things. You're very acclimated. Obviously, this is the final course in the program that you take. Many of you may be working on your research courses. This is not an elective course. This is the final required course if you followed the sequence. So many of you are getting close to being done. So congratulations with that. Just a couple things. This course is really going to push you and challenge you to think differently about the way you do things. So first of all, we're going to examine a little bit of our own selves and how ourselves enter into the teaching and learning process. So what are our values and our cultural identities that we bring into the teaching and learning environment, number 1, and number 2, how do those identities impact and influence our teaching? Because they do. Okay, so this course is going to challenge you. It's probably going to frustrate you. I have students all the time that tell me, just tell me what to do so I can be a better culturally responsive educator. There's no formula for this. A lot of it is self-examination and reflection and really making an intentional effort to understand the lives of the students that come before you and how you work to really motivate and work towards achievement. Now, one thing you probably know as educators, Minnesota does have one of the worst academic achievement gaps between students of color and mainstream students. And so culturally responsive practice is one strategy that really sort of aids in opening up our teaching and learning process to really meet the needs of all of our students. So I look forward, I love teaching this class, and I really look forward to working with each of you throughout the course of the semester. And if you have questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, ideas, I love, if you see something and you say, hey, I want to dig deeper into this, or I want to try this, always please reach out to me, because I'm very open to that. So with that, welcome again to EDU 6550. Thank you for those of you who have posted your frames. I really look forward to learning more about each of you. So take care, happy Wednesday, and if you're in Duluth, stay safe. We have some more snow coming, I hear, and just perfect timing as I'm heading to Burnsville, Minnesota for a robotics tournament. So anyway, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your week.